Chica. Welcome back. We are on episode 43 today of the hCG Diet interviews with everyday people. I like to do this with everyday people because it just shows that a lot of times we just think that we can't do this. A lot of us have tried to lose weight many times over and over with various diets and it never sticks. And so we can get discouraged. And so that's what I love about just interviewing so many different people living their normal lives and going through the protocol and being successful. So today I have Helen with me. She, as she put it, she's back to her high school weight and clothing size. So it's kind of exciting we'll talk with her about her journey. She's got some things to share about what's been helpful for her in phase 2, losing weight, and in phase 3 for maintaining. Because as she brought out in her notes, they're different. They kind of require different tactics for both. Okay, so thanks for being with us, Helen.
It's great to be here.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just jump in? Why don't you give us your basics, like your age, height, current weight, and all of that type of stuff?
Okay, I'm 60. I'll be 61 at Christmas time. And I don't know where the years went. I still feel like 30 somehow, something. I am 5'6" to 5'7", and I weigh about 127. And my goal when I turned 50 was to be the same size and weight I was at 15. And I was able to do that, about 125. And about anywhere from a size 6 to a size 8, 10, depending on the brands.
Right.
And then I started gaining weight in my 50s. But now I'm back to where I wanted to be. So I had about a decade of being a little bit of a fatty. And I'm back, and it feels good.
So you feel like yourself again, it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know. For people that have been pregnant, after you give birth and you start getting your body back, it's kind of the same feeling.
Yeah, that's neat. And then did you have any medical conditions or anything?
I didn't. I think part of the issue was menopause and maybe perimenopause. But what has happened to me is I just started using food in the wrong ways. And that's what brought on the weight gain. It was basically there were a lot of tragedies and a lot of things out of my control, and I started finding comfort in food.
Yeah, a lot of people tend to do that. We'll talk about that more as we keep going. You mentioned that you are in menopause. Do you do any sort of hormone replacement or no?
No, I never did any of that, and I don't know where I am in menopause. I think I'm in menopause. I know I went into perimenopause kind of later in life, so I hadn't probably got into that till maybe 52 or 53. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's no medical conditions. I don't come from a family where obesity is an issue, and I never had a problem before. But when we get into the talking, I'll talk about. I've done quite a bit of reading. I'll talk about why I think I started gaining weight.
Yeah.
Because society has changed a lot too in the last 30 years. Marketing, we're just a target now, and there's so much out there that when I was little, I remember when there were only 2 potato chips available, regular and barbecued, and now there's 200?
Especially lately, they've even been coming out with more, like every type, like root beer chips and like everything.
I know, it's crazy. Or Oreos. I guess there's 40 different kinds of Oreos now. So of course we're gaining weight.
Right. Man. Well, I thought that would be encouraging for other women who are in menopause to know, because I get a lot of emails saying like, I'm in menopause, will this work for me? And so it sounds like that you're in menopause, you don't do hormone replacement, and you were able to actually tell us how much weight you lost. Where was your starting point?
Well, my starting point was 167, and I'm down to 127, and I've even gone a little lower, 125 or so. So about 40 pounds.
40 pounds. And
not all of it on hCG,
okay.
But the last 20 pounds were hCG.
Gotcha. Yeah. Last 20 pounds. And you did that over 2 rounds, it says?
I did 2 rounds, but I really was all over the place. I really should have read and memorized the protocol. So I wasn't really really about the last 10 days, I was really doing the right thing. And that's when I noticed I was losing about a pound a day.
Gotcha.
Um, but before then, I'd sneak in a little of this, or, I just
Yeah.
thought, oh, it's not going to make a difference. And
Yeah.
I realize now I need to, when you do the protocol, you really need to take it seriously.
I know it's so true, huh? Yeah, I understand what you're saying because, of course, in everyday life, when you have like a little bit of something here and there, it doesn't really make a difference. But when the hormones in your body, it really does. So, okay, great. So you lost 40 pounds, about 20 of it with hCG. You did the 2 rounds. It sounds like your weight loss was a little bit slow overall, just because, like you said, not kind of having all of the knowledge under your belt yet. Um, so what were some of the main specifics that you felt like could have been done better than, like you said, just eating a little bits here and there? Was it off protocol foods or eating more calories, or what do you think you did kind of not as great as you could have?
Maybe nibbling. Well, what I would suggest people to do is when you do the 3 to 4 week 500 calorie is really plan, and don't during holidays or any kind of big family event. The first time I did the protocol, I was in a training school where we had classes in the morning and we had a big snack at 10:30, and it was hummus and chips or this or that. And I would bring my little grapefruit and eat my little grapefruit, but it was so hard to always be around food and always feel deprivation. So to do it again, I wouldn't have put myself through that, because I think it encourages you later to do a binge, because the stress is just piling up.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so if you do the phase 2, I really suggest people not during the holidays from Thanksgiving to New Year, and just looking at a time when you can maybe even kind of be a bit of a hermit just to get away from the temptation. Because for me, it was so stressful. I was able to do it, but I think psychologically it was really traumatic to always having to be pass up what everybody else is eating.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with you with everything you just said. I'm the same way. Be a hermit. Don't expect yourself to, yeah, to do that. It's so emotionally trying, you know? It's
It
like you
is.
said, sometimes you can get through it, but it takes such a toll that sometimes it can cause binges later if it goes too far. Like I've done that. You've probably researched it too about how self-control is like a muscle they're finding, and that it gets fatigued. And so
Yeah.
control, it's like you have some, but it's finite in a given period of time. So then when you run out, yeah, you can go binge because you need to spread it out. And when you're on the protocol, there's really no breaks. You don't get to take that break. You
No, and I didn't understand. And that's why I'm telling people really read the protocol several times, because with that hormone in your body, if you're eating the wrong foods or more foods, you're really doing damage. Either do it right or stop taking the injections for a few days if there's something that you have to go to, like a wedding or something. But my situation was very hard. We had a meal plan. Everybody went to the cafeteria, and I had already paid for the food, so it's just really hard. And I would never do that again. Just find 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I even missed a church potluck during the 3 weeks. I just knew I couldn't go. There's all the food there. I would have eaten it. And I guess I would encourage people just to say that is normal. It's a normal reaction to want to join people when they're eating. Don't get down on yourself. Don't be a superwoman. Just, you know, just don't do the protocol when it's going to be tough. Definitely not during holidays.
Very wise. Yeah, listen to Helen, you guys. Listen to Helen. It's
It's
so
just
true.
3 weeks,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and just turn down social gatherings and so on, because otherwise you start feeling bad about yourself. It's very hard for me to go to potlucks and barbecues when there's all this food, and that's just who I am, and I'm not going to beat myself up,
Right. Yeah,
you know?
I agree with that. I had to do the same thing. And when I didn't, like you, I did have some rebounding where I would eat a bunch of stuff later after the event because it was so taxing
Yeah,
that
to be saying no and everybody else is eating, and there's chocolate cake and there's
uh,
all this stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so it's totally normal to feel that way, and a lot of the people who end up succeeding, like Helen, and I, with the protocol, we actually did make those adjustments. So it's not like we arrived here just by being super, like she said, like super women. It's actually that we recognize our limitations actually, and then make adjustments. As Helen mentioned, it's only the 3 to 6 weeks, um, because it's, I think it'd be different if it was like a 1 or 2 year process. Then you could really start to feel like you have no friends, like you never do anything. That could border on obsession, where you just live your whole life about diet. But this is actually a very short period of time so that you can get a nice chunk of weight off, and then you can be back in society. On phase three, it's there's so much more room for calories and for food. You can usually make something work, when you go out, whereas P2 is much harder. So thanks for those thoughts, Helen. That was good. Um, one of
And
the, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
another thing, I just look at my notes here. Another thing that I did, as we gain weight and get fatter, we obviously get bigger clothes. What I would do as soon as I started getting a little bit smaller, I would get rid of those bigger clothes because the temptation is to keep wearing them. And then we've got so much room, we don't think we're that big. So I would try to get into the next size, and it would be really digging at my waist. So that's another thing that I did is, just continually, especially if you were smaller, getting back into those clothes, but really try to get rid of the bigger clothes as soon as possible. Take them to Goodwill, or if nothing else, put them in the basement. But that really helped me during that time of giving up everything.
Nice. That's good.
Say, oh, good, this week I'm into these pants. I couldn't wear these last week. And just
Yeah,
keep pushing yourself to the next size.
that's great. Yeah, that's great advice. It's kind of fun actually too. I think I have a couple YouTube videos. I don't remember now, there was a pair of jeans that were much too small, and I tried to put them on, and you could see how they like couldn't close at all.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, I didn't have any grandiose goals because I was kind of hopeless about losing weight. So, but eventually, by the time I tried them on again, they were actually too big. Like I never even got to wear them really because the timeline was so quick, and then they were too big. And so it's kind of funny how that can happen. Well, why don't you tell me a little bit now about how, like, 'cause it sounds like for the vast majority of your life, you were actually at a healthy weight for your height, and then you had some tragedies happen. Like, what happened? How did that weight gain come about? You said you had some thoughts on that.
Well, there were probably 2 or 3 areas. First of all, it could have been my body going through the menopause.
Yeah.
Um, then there were a lot of things that happened. My son was diagnosed with autism. That was a real shock. My brother died very quickly at just 53. It was during the financial crisis, and I was on one of those mortgages where they're 5-year arms, and then I had to switch over. And I sent in all my paperwork to the bank, and they lost everything. And they kept losing it. So I almost lost my house. I came from within 24 hours of being foreclosed on in a state where there's once it's gone, it's gone. You can't get it back. So for about 8 years, my life was just really tough. Then my mother died. Um, so it was just total stress. And it was so much all at once that I just I just kind of found comfort in food. And we all find a little bit of comfort in food, and we have our little treats and whatnot. But this was so overwhelming. I really was pushed over the edge. So the hormone, that, and then two, one of the things, and I'll make a recommendation for this later because this was something that helped me. I've done a lot of reading about the food industry. And they've said that since like 1970s and 80s, when the obesity epidemic started, there's just so much more choice now. And there's so much more money going into marketing and advertising. And I did a lot of reading on that, like cinnamon buns, those wonderful buns. I love those. Well, I read about all these companies, they spent like a year marketing and getting that product just right. Well, no wonder when we walk into a food court or a mall, we're so tempted. So much goes in to the food industry. And I think a lot of people I know this, I think it was the 70s or the 80s. There was this big let's get away from fat and fat-free stuff. Well, what happened with the products is the sugar companies just started putting sugar in everything. So you cannot get a product now without sugar. Ketchup, yogurt, everything has sugar in it now. And that's something new. So I think it was those three things.
Gotcha.
Me turning to food for comfort, but then just food targeting us more. So I think we need to be really careful not to totally blame ourselves and say, oh, I'm just totally out of control. I have no discipline, because we have been targeted. And that has really helped me. There's so much on YouTube. There's so many books written about the marketing of these companies and the type of money they put into advertising. And I would just suggest, if people are having trouble overcoming the temptations, just read up on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because you'll be angry. You'll be angry at what people have done. But it's those three areas.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's crazy. Would you, do you have, I mean, I don't know if you have time to do this, but were there like a couple main YouTube videos that you might be able to find that we could link to in the show notes?
Yeah. Well, I have three authors I wanted to tell you about.
Please.
There is the documentary. It's called Food Inc.
Right.
Food Inc. And it talks about how in America we pretty much got rid of the small farmer, and basically everything is made by these big companies. And their goal is to make money. If you die of heart attack, they don't care. They don't care if we live or die. They don't care if we're 100 pounds overweight. And so that's a good one. And then there's also some of the, like BBC and PBS, they have this test where a guy went to McDonald's for a month and ate 3 meals. I don't know if you've seen that one. The doctors were so astounded at how bad he was after 3 weeks or a month.
His blood testing and stuff.
Yeah, everything. His heart, his liver, everything. So once just go on YouTube. And then I'll tell you about some authors that talk about emotional eating and so on. But that's more just understanding how we're really targeted by companies that want to make money, and there hasn't been a lot of lobbying against these companies. Whereas with big tobacco, they intentionally advertised to get people sucked in, like the Virginia Slims, people, oh, I'll be slim if I smoke cigarettes, or I'll be a modern woman. And then there was lobbying against that. So they can't target children. They can't, every cigarette box has that little caption that it's not good for you. TV, you can't have people cigarette smoking on TV and children's commercials, where the food industry, they've just been run wild, whereas big tobacco's been curtailed. And but those are two movies that I remember. But I didn't realize how much marketing, the type of money that goes into targeting us.
Right. Yeah, like they really get down to the psychology of it.
Yeah.
So
and the smells and the sounds, smells and the texture, and does it go down quickly, or do we need to add more fat? And all this testing they do, it's costing billions, but it's worth it for them.
Right. Yeah.
So we're really we're really in many ways like little mice in a laboratory.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like kind of learning about all that really helped you to like kind of set your foot down in your head or something.
Oh, yeah.
Gonna fall for that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a victim anymore. I know you're trying to get me. It almost sounds paranoid, but a lot of us do that with drugs and cigarettes.
Yeah.
But we need to do that with food too.
That's true. What were the three authors that you had found?
There's some really good books out there. One is called Intuitive Eating. And I can email you this too so you can write it down. Her name is Evelyn Tribble. And because once we lose the weight, we have to get to the root of the problem. Otherwise, we're just cutting the top of the weed.
Right.
And that's why a lot of us will lose the weight and then we gain it back. So for long-term maintenance, we need to really understand ourselves and why we're eating and so on. And Evelyn Tribble, she talks about different kind of eaters. And there's the multitask eater. I'm one of those. A lot of us like to do more than one. We can't just sit and eat.
Yeah.
So we're driving and eating. We're at the computer and eating. We're watching TV and eating. And she says that's really bad. So that's one of the things I'm going to work on in this next year, is not being a multitask eater. And they've done studies. France, for example. The French go and they have a meal, and I think the Italians too, and they just enjoy the food. And they don't have anywhere near the obesity that we do. And I think it's partly because of that. Whereas when you're multitasking, watching TV, driving, or doing something at the computer, you eat more. You eat a lot more because you're not enjoying it and you're not even realizing.
Yeah, it's like you don't realize you ate.
No.
Like you get the psychological benefit of feeling like, oh, I ate.
Yeah. So that's one of the eaters. Another one people might relate to is, well, it's free and it's available eater. Church potlucks, company staff meetings, Christmas parties, where there's a table with all that food. Right. So that's one. Then there's a don't throw away, don't waste eater. Moms a lot of times will eat the leftovers from our children. And then the other one, a curiosity eater. Oh my, those brownies look good. Or, oh wow, did you see that cheesecake? And or if you go to a new country, you just want to eat. You're not hungry, but you're curious.
Yeah.
So those are my eating areas that I'm going to work on.
Very nice. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Cool. So intuitive eating.
Yeah. And then the other one is, and I even have one of her books.
Sure, yeah, then we'd love to see that.
And she's a social worker, and she deals with eating disorder people. Her name's Karen Cunning. It's Koenig. And this one is called Nice Girls Finish Fat.
Okay.
But anything by her, basically she says if we don't have strong boundaries, and a lot of us don't, women are socialized to be there for other people.
Right.
A lot of us have trouble saying no. She says that if we're meeting everybody else's need, can't say no, we will go to food because of the stress or because of comfort. So she's a good author. She has like 5 books. And just looking at the psychology of why we're eating and why is this compulsive eating and emotional eating. And the other one who's good is Janine Roth, Roth. And she does a lot of, she has seminars on breaking away from emotional eating. But that's what I want to do this next year. Now that I've got the weight down, I'm still not out of the forest, so to speak, because the problem that got me there, the root is still there.
Gotcha. But those are great. Yeah, thanks for sharing all those resources, because that'll help everyone else you guys can look those books up. We'll have the links to them in the show notes too, but some of them listen to the podcast version, and if you're listening, they might just type it into their phone real quick on Amazon, so that's great.
And one other thing that I've done through YouTube is there's something called hypnotherapy, and that's where you start listening, and apparently there's a lot of scientific research that it will change your mind. So there's lots of videos on mindful eating, I will reach my weight loss goals, and that kind of thing, and that has really helped me too.
Great.
Listening, maybe in the morning, maybe at night before you go to sleep. Don't drive and listen. But just anything you can do to change your inner being, because it's not just about keeping away from the potluck tables.
Right. No, it's true. There has to be an inner change, and it requires quiet time and thought, to make those adjustments. Yeah, no, those are good thoughts. Why don't we move on to talking about, well, actually I had a question then. It sounds like we're all still works in progress, but I don't know if your life has also just settled down for you a little bit, but do you feel like you are finding other ways to cope instead of food now? Because it sounds like that was the hard part. Like, how do you cope instead with stressful events in life now? Do you have any things that are helping you in that way?
Yeah, but just be aware that those will trigger things. maybe a conflict, maybe an argument, any kind of thing on a daily basis. And then I try to journal or just quiet myself and figure out what goes on. And that's kind of daily maintenance.
Gotcha.
Now, I'm trying to learn. Oh, and the other book, I know you've recommended it too, is Robin Woodall's book. I got that. I'm just going to memorize that almost. There's so much good in that. And what I'm trying to do is be in touch with my hunger. Am I hungry? Am I getting to the point I can stop eating? And I'm not there yet. I don't really know when I'm hungry sometimes.
Gotcha.
So, because a lot of times we eat out of, like I said, curiosity or not to waste or whatever.
Yeah.
But just try to center myself. Yeah. And then also I stay away from starches, cookies. I have them, but during that period of hard times, I was getting into those more. And then I realized, I wasn't eating this stuff before as much. Yeah. So everything just kind of broke down. I was a bit like a seawall that a tidal wave broke, and then I had to build back the wall.
Gotcha. That's good.
Yeah, journaling, talking to a friend, just trying to get by yourself and say, what is going on? Because there will be times during the day where we get bad news or a conflict with somebody at work or a family member. And, if it's in our makeup, the knee-jerk reaction is to go to the refrigerator, isn't it?
Right. No, it's true. Yeah. Yeah. Even now, like, I feel like I've come a long way from.
Yeah. Well, you have 4 years.
Yeah. But I can't say that I am perfect. Yeah. Like that, like no. When I have, an argument with my husband or something, or I'm stressed out about something, I can't say that I never eat some food when I'm not hungry. Like definitely there's still the comfort factor that's there. And I think part of it is learning like how to get away from it, but also how to make it less damaging too. Like there's certain foods I just don't eat anymore. So like even if I am eating when I'm not hungry or whatever for comfort, it's still like a healthy choice that's not going to really be a problem. So I think that's also helpful while you're working towards, making better choices. So
yeah, the more self-aware we can be, and then okay, why do I want this piece of chocolate cake or this brownie or and I try not to keep those things in the house, but they're everywhere. You go outside and they're in the stores and try to figure out, why am I eating it? Will it really help? Is the brownie really the answer to my problem? Right. Or do I need to get something right or journal or just calm down what they said they didn't really mean or,
Yeah. I think also too, sometimes for me, what helps is thinking about how quickly the food I'm thinking of eating will be gone. Like how much enjoyment, like how is the timing there? Like how much enjoyment will I get? Probably 5 or 10 minutes. That's really not, pretty much never worth it, for just that. And then having some residual after negative effects.
Yeah, being very self-aware. And oftentimes when we're eating, we're still so emotionally traumatized. It's not even an enjoyable thing. We're just kind of gulping it down.
Right.
And then the other thing is, okay, I can have the brownie. We don't want to deprive ourselves. I can have it. I can always eat it. But why don't I wait 5 minutes?
Yeah.
It's like people that go shopping and they see a dress. I'm going to think about it.
Right.
Put it on hold or maybe take it home. But I might bring it back. Keep the receipt. Because it's like the buyer's remorse thing. It's the eater's remorse.
It's true. No, that's a very good point. Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. I do the same thing with sometimes I actually am hungry enough since I CrossFit. Sometimes I need to eat a lot in one meal, like right after CrossFit. But there's times when I'm like, I don't know that I need a sandwich and a half. So I'm gonna order one sandwich and then eat it. And if I'm still hungry, I can order the other half sandwich, And so sometimes I'll find that, actually, I don't need more food now. And so that way you're giving yourself the permission if you do truly want it or need it. But like you said, you give yourself that time to eat a little, see if you feel content without kind of overdoing it, So, yeah.
Yeah, and some of these authors really talk a lot about this deprivation, the shoulds. Oh, you ate bad food. you're bad, you had that brownie. And she says, get away from that. And even with raising our children, you know, she said, just have some things in the house, have some gummy bears, and the child can have. Just put it all on the table. They can have broccoli and gummy bears and Twinkies and some good chicken. And she says, if you don't deprive them, they will eat and they won't make the gummy bears and the Twinkies special.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of how to raise children to eat well, because unfortunately a lot of us didn't get that growing up, and that's why we have these problems now.
Yeah, it's kind of just, yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was thinking when I was growing up, we had, so it was never a big deal. We were, as kids, they would let us, like, everyone would have their glass of wine, so it was alcohol, and we would get a little bit of red wine and we'd have to fill the rest of the glass with water. But they actually did let us have a little bit. So it became like it was never anything to be like, oh, I can't wait till I'm 21 and I can, because it was not a big deal. We could sit around with our glass. It was totally watered down. There was hardly any wine in it, but it was like, oh, but this isn't some special thing, that we want to overdo.
Yeah.
It was just normal.
I think that's like Italy and France and those places. I think anybody can buy. A lot of times families will send their 6-year-old to the store to get some wine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, thanks for sharing all that. Those are all good things. Why don't we move into phase 3 then, since we're kind of heading there anyway? Like how you eat. I'd love some examples of what you do eat in daily life now that kind of keeps things in check for you. And then you also mentioned that you do occasionally indulge. So maybe you can share about that.
Yeah. Well, the first week of phase 3, I really believe in weighing in every day. I know some people say you get obsessed, but for me, I just need to be tracking all the time, because we start denying things. Oh, before you know it, you're 3 pounds over. And during the maintenance period, I always stayed under the 2 pounds. So I never had to have an apple day or the steak day. I was very vigilant. So the first week, I think I just incorporated eggs, and everything else I stayed on the
original.
Yeah, and mine was pretty Spartan. It was 100 grams of chicken, 100 grams of cod, and then cucumber and salad and an apple. And then I brought in eggs, and then I brought in cottage cheese the next week, and then I brought in yogurt. And then into phase 4, I brought in cheese. Cheddar cheese. I just was so tired of cod, and I noticed I did gain a little. So, but not more than the 2 pounds, but I was even under my weight. But anyway, I was gradual. I haven't got into starches yet. I did make a few bread rolls that I found online that had almond flour.
Oh,
but is that not considered starch, or what?
No, yeah, that's considered a low carb alternative.
Good. Yeah, I found low carb that, and then I made your chocolate cake.
With the black beans?
Yeah, and the sugar. Oh, and that's one thing I wanted to ask you. What's the difference between like stevia and xylitol sugar? Is there a difference, or?
Yeah. So stevia is like just very tiny amounts of the powder have a very strong taste, right? So
so a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah, so there's that. And also I have found baking with stevia is pretty hard. Like to get the level of sweetness you want, there ends up being that bitterness that doesn't taste good. So I find I don't like much stevia in actual baked goods. But the thing and then xylitol is a sugar alcohol, and then there's what's called erythritol, which I like better than xylitol because it doesn't produce digestive discomfort. Xylitol the molecule is a little larger, and I think it's like your small intestine can't digest it, so which is good because you don't absorb like any calories or carbs, but because the molecule is bigger, it can cause like diarrhea and digestive discomfort. Whereas the erythritol, it's similar, but the molecule is smaller, so it usually doesn't bother people. So like I can use erythritol, no problem, but I don't feel good with the xylitol. But yeah, those are both. And what's great about those two is that they act a little bit more like actual sugar, so that when you're like, for instance, if you made a low carb icing or a muffin, it has the volume that you need, and you can beat it like with eggs and have it actually create the texture you need, whereas stevia just doesn't have that ability. So what I end up doing a lot of times is combining erythritol and then just a little bit of stevia,
Okay.
and that's kind of what
Okay.
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So, yeah. So now I'm on my 5th week. I have next week, and then I'm going to do another round. I just bought the double pack. So I'm going to do another round before the holidays, and then I'm going to do one in in January because my thing expires in February. My
gotcha.
my double pack, and that's more just to get rid of. I still have a bit of a um, uh, love handles and things, and I want to get my BMI down, but I think I'm like 21 or so, so I'm not too bad.
Yeah.
But
Good. And then you
yeah.
said you did drops your first round and injections your second round. Is that right?
Well, I did the drops, and it was hard for me because I could never remember how many. I'd be counting, and they go so fast. So that was really kind of a nightmare. I don't really know if I lost any weight.
Yeah.
And then I got the injections, but that got lost somehow. So I was without something. So my first 2 rounds were really pretty crazy. But
Gotcha.
like I said, by the end, I was losing. Just in a week, I think I lost like 8 pounds.
Yeah, because you were really on protocol there. Yeah.
Yeah, I finally got it together and so on.
Gotcha.
But yeah, people really need to understand it is not a diet because diets you can't fudge a little here and there. It's a medical protocol,
Right. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, respect it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And then did your rounds that you did before, were they 3 weeks or 6 weeks, or how long were you on each one?
Well, the last one I just did till I finished the bottle, but I'm not sure. So that would have been about 5 weeks, but I was traveling for 24 hours, so I don't know if it lost a little bit of its potency. The
Gotcha.
next round, I'm really going to be serious.
Yeah, you're
I'm
like, I know what I'm
open
doing
my
now.
calendar. I'm going to be a hermit.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just it, and I noticed a lot of people that you talk to on your videos, and even you. It takes a while for people to understand this protocol. Very few people jump right in, and do it because it's new to us. And
Right.
that's why I think, if you could read Dr. Simmons' thing every day, just the protocol part, not all the other stuff, because it's quite a bit.
Yeah.
But, I don't remember hearing that I shouldn't be sneaking around or I'll gain weight. I don't remember that part. So, so I had a little piece of cake or something, and everything got out of hand. And he says that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, and there is a lot to it. I agree. It's like good to take your time, and when you jump in too fast, like you said, sometimes the results can be kind of less than stellar, which is makes it hard because it's a hard protocol, even if you are kind of screwing up. It's still hard. So it's better to wait a little longer, finish your research, and then start.
Well, and then I think you'll have a better result too. And
Mhm.
you won't have to do it as long.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
maybe that would be a motivation for people. If I really do it seriously, I only have to do it for 5 weeks, or for 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, as opposed to five
yeah.
or six.
Yeah. So I'm
Uh,
curious, since you've spent about 5 weeks now in phase three, which is the maintaining, stabilizing thing, I know you said you're not doing starches and sugars. Sometimes what people's perception of that is different. So I'm curious what actual foods you've eaten that you're still maintaining. So like black beans, for instance.
I
Um,
did your
those
cake
have
with
like
all
a
those.
complex carb. So that's cool that you're able to have a little bit of that, and that hasn't been a problem. Um,
Yeah, I made your flaxseed bread, and I
okay.
also did this other bread from the internet I found. Um, I haven't. Well, once in a while, I have a tiny piece of candy or something like that.
Yeah.
But basically, no pastas. I did find a pizza crust I'm gonna make, but basically, it's still pretty primitive.
Yeah. What kinds of
Um,
vegetables do you eat, would you say?
Pretty much just the cucumbers right now.
Okay, yeah. So,
And I do enjoy salt and pepper, any little spice. When you're on that 500 calorie, even a little bit of salt is just so wonderful. You just
yeah.
But I haven't done any pastas yet, um, any breads, except the one I made with the almond flour. So
Yeah.
I've pretty much stayed away from pretty much everything. Yeah, no ice cream. I do yogurts, and yogurts unfortunately have quite a bit of sugar, even the no fat, no.
So you're able to eat a regular yogurt that has some sugar and it's been okay?
Not the regular, but even the non-fat Greek yogurt, they still, when you look, they still have like sugar in them.
Yeah, like, well, like, because milk products do have lactose, which has sugar, but is there any added sugar in the ingredients? Do you know? Or
Yeah,
just the sugar?
and the Greek yogurts I just picked up at Walmart, they do have sugar in them. You can't. I haven't
Yeah.
found yogurt with, and I'm not talking about the ones with the fruit and the really nice ones or
Right.
the ones with M&Ms. I'm talking about the very Spartan Greek ones. They
Yeah.
still have sugar in the ingredients.
Okay.
6 grams.
It's good to know that though, that you're able to have a little bit of that and you're still maintaining, because I think people, they want to know that, like, after HCG, am I going to be trapped never having anything again that's not a cucumber and chicken breast? Like, that's not true. It's like you're having the black beans and the little cake, you're having some yogurt that does have a little added sugar. That sounds like it's been okay.
Yeah. Now I'm exercising. We have a swimming pool here, and I do swim and do
Oh,
laps.
that's good.
The last week the church had a picnic, and I knew there was going to be food, and I just said, I'm not going to beat myself up. And I had 2 pieces of chocolate cake, and I had some brownies, um, and I didn't gain any weight from that.
Good.
Yeah, and I wasn't super great. I mean, 2 pieces of chocolate cake, 2 brownies. I think I had an oatmeal cookie. What I did notice has started making me gain weight is the cheddar cheese, because
Uh,
that was the new addition this week.
gotcha.
So
That seems to be maybe like a slight food sensitivity, perhaps, huh?
I
Where,
don't know. I
yeah,
don't know, but I just really wanted cheddar cheese.
I love cheddar.
Yeah. So now what I'm going to do, I love breads. I'm heading back to Austria in a week, and they have wonderful pastries there, wonderful breads. I have found some low calorie, low carb things that I'm going to make. So
Nice.
that way, when I see all this stuff in the store, I can go home and make my own little version. And that's, I think, what people should do, because you
Yes,
can't just live without cake. And
right.
now we're entering into the holiday season. That's what I suggest people do, is maybe have a little bit, like if you love your mom's fruit cake, have a little bit of that, and then try to find the low calorie alternatives or the low carb alternatives. Like I found these wonderful cinnamon rolls that are great. I didn't realize it, but cinnamon, and they're like 100 calories a roll. Cinnamon buns are 700 calories per one of those.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's another way, so you won't always just feel so deprived, because we're entering, Thanksgiving, and then we'll have, Christmas and New Year's, and it's just really hard. It's
Yeah.
just really hard.
Yeah. No, I like that you said the replacements. I feel like that's been one thing for me that's helped a lot is when we're out, like you said, there might be a dessert if we're at a restaurant. But you know what? I think to myself, like, oh, I have my little things I make at home with my smoothies and cocoa powder and some Swerve, which has erythritol in it, and a little banana and all those ice cubes. But I love them. And my carafe, it's like 20 or 30 ounces worth of, like, to me, what tastes like dessert that I get to have. It's completely guilt free, doesn't cause a problem for my body. So I have no problem, honestly, being like, oh, I'm gonna pass and wait till I get home, and I can't wait to make my smoothie.
Good.
Because I
Good.
love it. It's, yeah.
Well, and the one nice thing about the protocol, and this is what Robin says in her book, is you do start enjoying your apple, you know,
It's true.
or
Your
your
taste buds are
cucumbers or
heightened.
whatever. Everything tastes so good.
Yeah.
And yeah, ideally, just don't get the bad stuff into your house, the
Right.
chips and stuff. Just tell everybody in the family. That's what I'm trying to do now with my son, is we're going to kind of eat the same food, because before he would have his stuff and then I get tempted.
Yeah, no, it's true. I know for some people, it depends, families are all so different. Some family members they're not always as on board with like, supporting the other members. So one thing is like sometimes at least having a different cabinet, like if your husband really just needs to have his Doritos and treats and stuff, like maybe have it in a cabinet that you do not open so you're never having to see it to see the food that you would eat. Like, that's just one tip for some of you guys that maybe don't have quite as good a dynamic there.
Yeah. No, I know it's tough. It
Yeah.
is really tough.
Did you have, I'm curious, did you have fruit? Have you had fruit in phase 3 or?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was the other thing I started incorporating when I got the cottage cheese and the yogurt, is I got those bags of frozen fruits at Costco, the berry mixes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I do, I just love little free samples. I don't go to Costco. The samples start at 11. I get in and out of Costco before 11.
That's smart.
I just know I'm gonna,
It's pizza bagel bites. I mean,
free, I have been kind of in a good situation here, which helped me because there's no stores around. When I live in Vienna, it's a city, and you just walk out to your apartment, and there's hot dog stands and French fries and bratwurst and potato wedgies, and
yeah.
they have these wonderful Christmas markets that start in November with gingerbread and so on. So we'll see how I do. We'll
Right.
see how
Yeah.
I do.
New challenges. Oh, well, good. I think that was all really, really helpful stuff. I guess before we finish, are there any just last thoughts you'd like to share that you think are important for people to know?
Well, for me, it was really helpful to weigh in all the time
Yeah.
and try to, during maintenance, I mean, like I said, for the diet part, just really, really, the low cal, just really try to stick to it.
Right.
And oh, and the other thing I would do is each day I had a little thing. I'd write my weight, and then I'd say I kept to the diet. I didn't add anything or didn't do anything. And just a few chips might show up on your weight.
Right.
And he talks about that in his article. So and then I would say, I want to really be able to say that I didn't add anything.
Yeah.
So that's why I wouldn't sneak something.
That's good.
And then try to find, once you're into maintenance, try to find some recipes where you can have that chocolate or you can have whatever it is, maybe recipes that aren't as high in calorie. The other thing I have done, and I know you talk about intermittent fasting, that you've done that. I think that's key. I've also done the sea salt cleanse.
Oh,
I did that this morning.
interesting.
And what it does is it cleanses your body, and you can find it online. It's sea salt that's uniodized,
Okay.
and you put it in 4 cups of good water, filtered water or bottled water. And then what happens is your system just cleans, and you go to the bathroom, and you do feel much better.
Right.
And you can drink lemon water to flush it down then, and some people put maple syrup and cayenne powder. I usually don't. Pepper, I don't usually do that. But that really helps.
Nice.
You feel much better. And then maybe a little bit of fasting or, just trying to be healthy. But the key is try to find balance. Don't get fanatical. Even with exercise, try to be doing stuff that you like so you can keep doing it.
Right.
Because I think the key is we try to do all these hard things, and then a week or two later we have a day we can't do it, and then we just give up. It's kind of like an all or nothing mentality.
Right.
And I'm just trying to be more balanced. Like at that potluck, I had those 2 pieces of cake, and that's okay. I'm not going to act like I'm bad.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think
know?
knowing that like you can counterbalance things, because I've done that. I definitely have pretty heavy calorie laden meals. But I know that I can balance that by eating leaner or doing a little fasting at earlier in the day or the following day. It's like I just try to juggle that, and it really does seem to work out. So yeah, that's good. Well, thank you for all that. And also, you guys, so any little like links that we talked about today, you can get in the show notes. This was episode 43 with Helen. I have a search bar in the footer of my site if you're on desktop, and if you're on your phone or tablet, you'll see a little search bar icon towards the top of the blog, and you can just type in like episode 43, and you'll probably find it pretty quickly. And yeah, I like what you mentioned about the sea salt protocol too. Sea salt's really powerful. There's actually, I haven't done it, but that's actually one of the Lyme disease protocols. There's a sea salt Lyme disease protocol, and Lyme disease is a really tough illness to beat. So it just shows how powerful it is, you know, the sea salt for
Yeah.
helping your
And
body.
sometimes I guess it takes about 3 days for us to get the waste out.
Yeah,
So sometimes people will do it for 3 days, and I just do it till about noon.
yeah,
And then I have my meals and so on.
yeah.
And then the next day, and then you have a 3-day break or something. So,
Nice. Nice.
yeah.
That'll be great for people to research. Well, thank you for sharing all of your nuggets of knowledge and learning today, Helen. That was really great. Again, you guys, episode 43. And if you want to look at any of the other interviews that I've had so far, just go to hcgchica.com/interviews, and it'll take you there. And yeah, I've got 43 episodes now, so there's plenty there to keep you inspired and motivated. So thanks a lot for watching or listening, whichever you were doing today. Take care, guys. Bye.